In the quaint little town of Willow Creek, nestled in the rolling hills of rural Ohio, where the summers were lazy and the winters unforgiving, a fierce storm brewed on the horizon one fateful autumn evening in 2023, the kind of storm that locals whispered about in hushed tones, predicting flooded basements and uprooted trees. But no one could have foreseen the heartbreak it would unleash upon a loyal soul named Max, a golden retriever mixed with fur as soft as sunlight and eyes that held the wisdom of countless belly rubs and tail-wagging adventures. His owner, an elderly man named Mr. Harlan, had fallen ill months prior, his once strong hands now frail and trembling, unable to even toss a ball across the yard, and as the cancer tightened its grip, Mr. Harlan's distant relatives swooped in like vultures, arguing over his modest estate while ignoring the faithful companion who had been by his side through every doctor's visit and lonely night. They saw Max not as a family member but as a burden, an extra mouth to feed in a world already stretched thin. So on that stormy afternoon, as dark clouds swallowed the sun and the first drops began to fall, they loaded Mr. Harlan's belongings into a rented truck, unchained Max from his familiar spot in the backyard, and drove him to the edge of town, where an old abandoned lot met the whispering woods. They tied him loosely to a rusted fence post, tossed a half-eaten bag of kibble onto the muddy ground, and sped away without a backward glance, their taillights fading into the gathering dusk as Max's confused barks echoed futilely after them. The rain started as a gentle patter but quickly escalated into a torrential downpour, soaking through Max's coat and chilling him to the bone. He tugged at the rope, his paws slipping in the slick mud, but it held fast, designed for restraint rather than escape. Thunder clapped overhead like a giant's applause, and lightning forked across the sky, illuminating the desolate landscape where overgrown weeds tangled with discarded trash. Max huddled as best he could, his body shivering uncontrollably, memories flashing through his mind of warmer days, of Mr. Harlan's gentle voice calling him good boy and the scent of homemade stew wafting from the kitchen, but now there was only the relentless assault of water from above, pooling around his paws and turning the ground into a quagmire. Hours passed, or perhaps it was minutes stretched unto eternity by fear, and Max's whimpers grew weaker, his spirit dimming like the fading light. He wondered if this was the end, if loyalty meant nothing in a world that discarded the devoted so easily. Meanwhile, not far away in a cozy bungalow on Maple Street, 10-year-old Tommy Jenkins was staring out his bedroom window, his freckled face pressed against the glass, watching the storm rage with a mix of awe and unease. Tommy was a quiet kid, the kind who preferred books about adventurers and animals over the rough-and-tumble games of his classmates. He had lost his own pet cat to old age just a year before, and the void in his heart still ached, making him sensitive to the sufferings of creatures great and small. His parents, Sarah and Mike, were busy in the kitchen, preparing a simple dinner of spaghetti and meatballs, the aroma filling the house as they chatted about the day's work at the local hardware store and elementary school. But Tommy couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss outside. The wind howled like a wounded animal, rattling the shutters, and in a brief lull between thunderclaps, he thought he heard a faint, desperate bark carried on the gusts. At first he dismissed it as his imagination, but it came again, piercing through the noise, pulling at him like an invisible thread. "Mom, Dad, I think there's a dog out there," he called, his voice trembling with urgency, but they were skeptical. The storm was too fierce for anyone to be out, let alone a stray. "It's probably just the wind, buddy," his dad replied, ruffling his hair. "Stay inside where it's safe." But Tommy's heart wouldn't let it go. He slipped on his yellow raincoat, the one with the hood that made him look like a little explorer, grabbed a flashlight from the hall closet, and before his parents could protest, he dashed out the back door into the maelstrom. The rain pelted his face like tiny needles, the wind nearly knocking him off his feet, but he pressed on, following the direction of that elusive sound, his sneakers squelching through puddles that had formed on the sidewalk. The neighborhood was eerily quiet, lights flickering in windows as families hunkered down, but Tommy ventured further, toward the edge of town where the houses gave way to fields and that forsaken lot. His flashlight beam cut through the darkness, revealing sheets of rain and swaying branches, and then, There it was at the bark again, closer now, laced with exhaustion and plea. He quickened his pace, heart pounding in his chest, until he reached the old fence, and in the beam's glow, he saw Max, tied and trembling, his golden fur matted and dark with water, eyes reflecting a mix of fear and faint hope. "Oh no, poor guy," Tommy whispered, his voice breaking as he approached cautiously. Max lifted his head, tail giving a weak wag despite everything, as if sensing a kindred spirit. Tommy knelt in the mud, ignoring the cold seeping through his pants, and gently stroked the dog's head, feeling the shivers under his palm. "It's okay, boy, I'm here now," he said, his own tears mixing with the rain. The rope was knotted tightly, but Tommy's small fingers worked at it persistently, the storm seeming to rage even harder as if testing his resolve. Lightning illuminated the scene like a dramatic spotlight, thunder rumbling approval or warning, he didn't know which. Finally, the knot gave way, and Max leaned into him, grateful and weary. Tommy wrapped his arms around the dog, sharing his body heat, but he knew they couldn't stay there. The journey back home would be treacherous, the path now a river of mud and debris. Carrying Max would be impossible for his slight frame, so he coaxed the dog to his feet, holding the loose rope like a leash, and together they began the slow trek back, step by painstaking step, the wind pushing against them, rain blurring Tommy's vision, but the boy's determination burned bright, fueled by empathy that no storm could extinguish. As they neared his house, his parents' worried calls pierced the night, flashlights sweeping the yard. "Tommy, where are you?" his mom shouted, panic in her voice, and when they emerged from the darkness, Sarah gasped at the sight of her son, drenched and muddy, leading an equally sodden dog. "What on earth?" she started, but Tommy's pleading eyes stopped her. He was all alone. "Mom, tied up in the storm, we have to help him," he said, his voice firm despite the chatter of his teeth. Mike rushed out with towels and blankets, wrapping both boy and dog, ushering them inside where the warmth of the hearth beckoned. Max collapsed by the fire, exhausted but safe, as the family dried him off, offering water and scraps from dinner. Tommy sat beside him, stroking his fur, whispering promises of better days, little knowing that this act of bravery was just the beginning of a story that would weave through loss, discovery, and unbreakable bonds. The storm outside continued its fury, but inside, a spark of hope had ignited, warming hearts against the chill of abandonment, and as Max's eyes closed in peaceful slumber for the first time that night, Tommy felt a profound connection, a sense that fate had guided him through the rain to save not just a dog, but a piece of someone's shattered world. The hours ticked by, the family discussing what to do next, checking for a collar or tags beneath the matted fur, finding a note engraved plate that read Max, if lost, return to 47 Elm Street, which was Mr. Harlan's address, now empty and for sale. Whispers of the old man's passing had circulated the town, but no one mentioned the dog. Sarah suggested calling animal control in the morning, but Tommy's fierce protectiveness shone through. "No, he's staying with us until we find out more," he insisted, and his parents, moved by his compassion, agreed. That night, as the storm subsided into a gentle drizzle, Tommy lay awake, listening to Max's steady breathing, pondering the mysteries of how one small choice could alter lives. The town of Willow Creek slept on, unaware of the miracle unfolding in one humble home, where a boy's heart had bridged the gaps between despair and redemption, setting the stage for revelations that would touch everyone involved, from the grieving relatives to the community at large. And as dawn broke with a rainbow arching over the horizon, promising renewal, Max stirred, licking Tommy's hand in gratitude, a silent vow forming between them, one that would endure trials yet to come. The story of Max and Tommy was just beginning, a testament to the power of kindness in the face of adversity, echoing through the quiet streets of their small American town like a beacon for all who believe in second chances. As the sun rose over Willow Creek, casting golden hues on the storm-ravaged landscape, puddles reflecting the clear blue sky like scattered mirrors, Tommy woke to the sound of Max's tail thumping softly against the floor, the dog's eyes bright with renewed energy, a far cry from the broken creature of the night before. Sarah busied herself in the kitchen, whipping up a breakfast of eggs and bacon, sneaking a few strips to Max, who devoured them eagerly, his appetite the sign of recovery, while Mike examined the tags more closely, noting the address and deciding to drive over to 47 Elm Street after work to inquire about the owner. Tommy, still in his pajamas, knelt beside Max, brushing out the tangles in his fur with an old comb, whispering stories of adventures they could have together, parks to explore and balls to chase, but beneath the excitement lurked the worry of what if Max had a family waiting, heartbroken and searching. The day unfolded with a sense of normalcy tinged with anticipation, Tommy reluctantly heading to school, his mind drifting back to the dog during math class and recess, sharing the tale with wide-eyed friends who promised to keep an eye out for any lost pet posters. Meanwhile, at home, Sarah took Max for a gentle walk around the block, noticing how he perked up at familiar scents, tugging toward the direction of his old home, her heart aching for the loyalty that animals showed, even after betrayal. By afternoon, Mike returned from the hardware store early, picking up Tommy from school, and together they drove to Elm Street, the house standing silent and forlorn, a for sale sign creaking in the breeze, windows dark and curtains drawn. No one answered their knocks, but a neighbor, Mrs. Ellis, peeked out from next door, her face lined with curiosity and sorrow. "Oh, that was old Mr. Harlan's place," she said, wiping her hands on her apron. "Passed away just last week, poor soul. His kin from out of town came and cleared everything out quick as you please. Didn't mention no dog, though I remember seeing one in the yard. Sweet thing, always barking hello." Tommy's eyes widened, piecing together the puzzle. "That's Max. We found him tied up in the storm last night," he exclaimed, and Mrs. Ellis gasped, inviting them in for tea as she recounted stories of Mr. Harlan and his faithful companion, how Max had been his lifeline after his wife died years ago, accompanying him on daily walks to the corner store and sleeping at the foot of his bed. The relatives, she confided, were distant nieces and nephews more interested in inheritance than sentiment. Rumor had it they'd argued fiercely over the will, leaving in a half without a care for loose ends like a bet. Mike thanked her, jotting down a phone number she'd overheard for one of the relatives, a woman named Clara from Chicago. That evening, as the family gathered around the dinner table, Max at their feet begging for scraps, they debated what to do, Tommy advocating fiercely to keep him. "He's got no one else now," he argued, tears welling up, but Sarah gently explained the importance of doing right by any remaining family, so Mike made the call, his voice steady as he introduced himself and explained the situation. Clara on the other end sounded surprised, admitting they'd assumed Max would fend for himself or be taken by animal services. "We couldn't take him to the city, apartments don't allow big dogs," she said dismissively, but when Mike mentioned Tommy's rescue and the bond already forming, her tone softened slightly, revealing that Mr. Harlan had left a small provision in his will for Max's care, a fund forgotten in the rush. "Perhaps the boy could use it to give him a good home," she suggested, and just like that, permission was granted, Max officially becoming part of the Jenkins family. But the story didn't end there, for as word spread through Willow Creek about the boy's heroism, the local newspaper picked it up, featuring a photo of Tommy and Max on the front page under the headline "Young Hero Saves Abandoned Dog in Storm," inspiring a community fundraiser for the animal shelter, where donations poured in from touched residents, Tommy becoming a local celebrity of sorts, shyly accepting pats on the back at school. But the true magic unfolded in quieter moments, like when Max chased butterflies in the backyard, his joy infectious, or curled up with Tommy reading bedtime stories, their breath sinking in peaceful harmony. Months turned into seasons, the bond deepening as Max helped Tommy through bullies at school, standing protectively by his side on walks, and in return, Tommy taught him new tricks, their laughter echoing through the house. One crisp spring day, Clara visited from Chicago, bearing Mr. Harlan's old photo album, pages filled with snapshots of Max as a puppy, romping with the late couple. She shared stories over coffee, tears flowing as she admitted regret for their haste. "Your kindness reminded us what family really means," she told Tommy, gifting him the fund to ensure Max's vet bills and treats for life. The visit culminated in a town picnic honoring Mr. Harlan's memory, where Max was the star, greeting old friends who'd known him from Elm Street days, the event raising awareness about pet abandonment, leading to adoptions and volunteer sign-ups. Tommy, now 11, stood proudly beside Max, realizing how one stormy night had rippled out to change so many lives, from healing a grieving family to uniting a community, and as the sun set on that perfect day, painting the sky in oranges and pinks, Max looked up at Tommy with those wise eyes, as if saying thank you for the second chance. The boy hugged him tight, whispering, "You're home now, forever," their story a beacon of hope in a world often stormy, proving that even in the darkest tempests, a child's pure heart can light the way to redemption and love eternal. Willow Creek would never forget the tale of the abandoned dog and the boy who changed everything, passing it down like a cherished legend, inspiring generations to look beyond themselves and extend a hand or paw to those in need.